Oh, hang on. Good? All right. Well, good morning. How nice to see you all here. How nice to be able to see. That's pretty grand in itself. Hello to those of you joining us out on the internet. Well, it must be December because my annual chest cold arrived. I'm prone to, had asthma a bunch when I was a kid, but I'm prone to this upper respiratory unpleasantness. And I was going to speak today about skillful speech, but this morning when I got up early to do my usual preparation for that, I discovered that I couldn't think because the cold, one of the cold symptoms is a kind of thick dullness of consciousness. And so I thought I would make use of that and give a talk on being sick and how being sick is the perfect opportunity for practice. I so often hear from people, oh, I couldn't meditate because I was sick. And when it's folks that I've been around, I think, gosh, I have done a poor job teaching of that, because that's the perfect time to practice. That's the one of the main reasons we practice, is to learn how to use that circumstance in order to be conscious, because we will get sick. We will get certainly sick. We will certainly get sick. So, anybody here for the first time today? Please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yay! Well, 5, 6. I'm glad you found us, and I hope it's useful. What comes to mind always is, I hope you discovered that this was a worthy way to spend your Sunday morning. And beyond that is, I hope that this is an encounter with the Buddha's teachings that will completely transform your life. That would be a successful morning, wouldn't it? What we'll be doing is a little refuge song here to begin with, and then we'll have a guided meditation for 40 minutes or so, and then Jim will lead us in some movement, and then there will be some announcements, and then I will give a talk on making use of sickness. So, we'll see how this goes. This will be interesting. I invite you to join me. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Dharma, I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Sangha, I take refuge in the Sangha, Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Again, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Nice. The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We could reflect on the refuges in a religious sort of way. The historical Buddha, the beliefs, the teachings as ideas, and the Sangha as the community of monks. And we could take this refuge as a way of really turning us inward. And in what does it really make sense to take refuge? Right? Where can we find, where is there any stability? Hey, Danny. Where is there any stability in this world of change, of political, cultural change, of bodies aging, of death? And in this tradition, there's the encouragement to take refuge in that which is awake. That in us which at this moment is seeing or hearing or aware of breathing. That it's the water we swim in, but we don't tend to notice it, that there's awareness. And we personalize that. Usually we think, oh, I'm aware, when in fact it is the universe that's aware. Or it's the mystery that's aware. And then the Dharma, taking refuge in the way things actually are. It's such a relief, I've heard from many people over decades, when we realize that the practice is about seeing, being with things as they are. So it's not a self-improvement task. It's not I'm going to get somewhere so that someday I have the right experience and then this will happen. It's right here. It's being aware of this. And then Sangha, the taking refuge in, I like to think of it as the community of life. At this moment, each of us, we are the cambium layer. You know, in the trees, there's that one little layer of cells. It's one layer, it's very thin. It's just a little living band around the tree, and that's what's alive. And that's what we are. We are the bearers of consciousness in this moment. And we share this with our dogs and cats and all beings, all sentient beings alive on the planet. We're it right now. It like tag, you're conscious. And so with that comes a tremendous opportunity and responsibility in a way to make use of that. So to take refuge in the community of all life, it's our home. So, as people have done for thousands of years, let's take a comfortable upright posture. And the Buddha sat cross-legged because he was from a small village in India. If you sit cross-legged comfortably, please sit cross-legged. But if it really is work and you're always struggling, then use a chair. This is a training of the heart and mind, not a physical yoga. So, sitting. You can have your eyes open or closed. And notice that there is, in fact, a body sitting here. So how do you know there's a body sitting here? It's touching the floor, the cushion. You can notice that there's life in that place of the universe you think of as your hands. Notice that there's life in your face. It's sometimes difficult to get beyond the concept or the image of face. Our intention is to get simply into the sensations. To notice that you're alive. And to use this mysterious awareness to come into contact with being alive. And this aliveness breathes. And this ballooning and contraction of the chest and abdomen can become your closest friend in this lifetime. It's been with you since the moment you first breathed, and it will be here till you expire. And each breath has a beginning, a rising to fullness, a decline, and a disappearance. Why not take this as your primary training object to help you awaken from the trance of thinking, the trance of everyday life? And be aware of breathing in and breathing out. The mind will, of course, wander off. But there's a silver lining in this wandering off, because each time it wanders off, it provides the opportunity for waking up again, for recognizing the wandering and then returning to the breathing. To take refuge in the Dharma means to experience what this mind is doing in this moment, just as it is. It might be a mind of great tranquility and ease and concentration. Or it might be a mind of complete chaos, of sadness or fear or desire, loneliness, confusion. It might be busy finishing off old conversations or conflicts, or trying to finish them, or worrying about the future. Don't go to war with this mind. It's not personal. It's just thoughts, moods, mind. Just come home to breathing when you can. Very kindly, very gently. there is some subtle effort involved in this. The effort to stay present. And there's actually terminology for it. When the mind wanders and then we are targeting the breath again, they call it initial application of awareness to the breath. And then sustained application. So finding the sensations and then being there. And there's a quality of remembering to it. Remembering the intention to stay awake with the breath. Sometimes mindfulness is called remembrance of breathing. Remembrance of life in the present moment. And this is in contrast with the tumult of ideas and plans and planning and worry and remembering of the past, getting lost in the past. Just coming home to be a body that breathes. In this universe that emerged with what we call the Big Bang or the Great Flash. Everything has been and continues to be in constant change. All of our suffering comes from trying to make things be stable, to make certain things last and other things end. And the breath manifests this truth of coming and going very elegantly. You can notice how each breath begins, fills, changes direction, empties, disappears. Sometimes it's useful to use little words called noting, to notice breathing in, breathing out, or about the chest and abdomen rising, rising, falling, falling, or about the mind wandering, 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 returning. please take a moment to really embrace your body. To acknowledge this incarnation, this being born in a living body. Seemingly out of nowhere and certainly out of the earth came and comes this living form. It is the vehicle that allows you to live a human life. We might take a moment to be grateful for human birth, for having feet and legs. To feel the life of the pelvis, the abdomen, solar plexus, chest. Grateful for lungs, for this heart that's been beating for all these years, thousands, millions of times. Grateful for your digestive system that brings in life from the world and chews it up and runs it through this tube in order to extract the energy and nutrients. Grateful for your sense doors, seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting and touching. And the mind that has this sensitivity to thoughts and moods and feelings. The mind where the past and future are created. Another way of viewing this practice is, it is that practice of fully incarnating, of fully becoming human. Of holding back less and less from the fact of our emotions and our hungers and our hurts. The compassion and love and beauty that's part of us. And we can do all this because of awareness, and we can use awareness of breathing to anchor us in this present moment. Inspired by and in honor of my teacher, Ruth Denison, I invite you to become aware of your non-dominant hand. To notice where it is, what it's touching. And then noticing the intention which comes before any action. Let this non-dominant hand very slowly make its way up towards your face. let's say, moving forward to touch the tip of your nose. But notice how it all happens. Notice the life in your arm. Your elbow has to bend. Do it really slowly. Maybe let your fingers wiggle a little bit in space and realize how alive they are. And then there will come a moment when the finger, maybe the middle finger, touches the nose or close by, probably, hopefully close by. And notice that contact. Contact. And notice that you can be very aware of the separate fingers as you bring them upwards to your forehead and let them touch one at a time. Touch, touch, touch. And with the utmost delicacy, hardly touching, let these fingers explore your forehead. It's a touch like if your beloved had been lost on Annapurna for weeks, or had just come out of the ICU, or how would you touch her or him? Be aware of this contact and that you can know it from the face side and the finger side. Awareness inhabits both. Notice what happens when you touch what you call your cheeks, or your lips. Let your fingers make their way to that bony orbit that protects and cradles your eyes. Notice that there really is a skull here. There's a bony something behind, hidden by the padding of the flesh. Contact, aware, present. Notice what the mind is doing. And if you were to return to the forehead again, press a little firmly and maybe pucker the skin together and realize that there's just a very thin layer of skin over something very hard. You can do the same up to your scalp. There really is a skull under here. This is a living body. And then ever so slowly letting your hand maybe do a final goodbye, final stroke or touch, and then realize the moment when contact is broken and there isn't contact anymore. Gone. And then letting this hand return to where it was before or some other place, very slowly. There's still the life of the hand, isn't there? Fingers, thumb. There's still life in the face. Awareness receiving life in the face. And if your eyes are still closed, please notice that there are no objects. There's no seeing. But then in the mind, you can create an intention. And then the eyes, then the eyelids can be lifted, pulled out of the way. And notice how seeing starts. Seeing objects. Seeing, mindful of seeing. And then maybe becoming aware your body might feel a bit stiff, and so let it very mindfully stretch. Thank you for doing the video, Paul. Please raise your hand if you feel calmer, saner, or more somehow normalized than when you walked in. Take a moment to look around. We sit around doing basically nothing, paying attention, and feel better, a lot better sometimes. And that then brings up the question, why don't we all take at least an hour or two a day to sit and do nothing? And become more efficient in everything we do. It's an interesting thing that we're so caught in this madness of the hurrying and the tremendous effort to achieve something that inevitably will fall apart and be problems for us. It's kind of crazy. So Jim, you ready to do a little movement with the folks?
Okay, here we are, standing. Trying not to get tied up in cables. Okay. Not every day you get kissed by your teacher. So, Robert took us through some interesting explorations with the inside and the outside. The inside of the fingertips, the outside of the skin on the cheeks and the forehead. We can also do explorations on the inside and the outside of the back, which is kind of interesting and a little more challenging, because we have lots of nerves on the tips of our fingers, but we don't have so many on our back. So let's open our palms and face upward with the palms like you're holding two platters, and then just turn and notice how the spine twists. Now, how do we know that the spine is twisting? One of the signals is our visual field is changing, and we know from previous experience that when it changes like this, we're not on a merry-go-round, we are the merry-go-round. There's sensations in the hips, sensations in the spine, on the surface of the skin as the fabric of your clothes pulls against the spine, and the skin on your back. Our fingers that have all these delicate sensors, probably a million more than what's on the spine, are aware of, maybe you're aware of the movement of your hands across in front of you. If your hands are a little sweaty, you might get sensation of coolness in the center of the hand or the tips of the fingers. But inside, what's happening? In the spine, in the shoulders, in the hips. The spine is kind of pivoting off of the joints that connect it to the pelvis. So deep inside, you might feel a little stretch over on one side and a little stretch over on the other. Then if you turn your hands down, your palms and your elbows out, continue turning. It doesn't feel the same down there at the pelvis, at the bottom of the spine. The leverage is more in the center. And you may not be used to directing attention to that part. But for me, that's the part that gets really tight when I get pulled over, or not pulled over, but pushed over by a truck on the highway. Somebody cutting me off. That's where it gets tense. And if I go to a class and then do this, I suddenly realize how tight it's been, and then it releases. But now let's turn the palms over and notice how the spine turns that way. There's not too many sensors back there, but there's enough to know the difference. And then relaxing, coming to stillness. Now it's hard to find the spine, at least for me. Without the movement, those subtle little sensors are very difficult to land on, because we're so conditioned to be watching and listening and feeling with our fingers. That's where our external contact with the world is so important. All the attention is going there most of the time. To get quiet and just let the attention be on the spine or the shoulders, or that little junction where the uprightness of the spine curves a little bit into the neck, that knob between the neck vertebrae and the thoracic vertebrae. There's a knob back there. Turn your chin over to one shoulder, feel the pull, and then come back and feel the pull in the other direction. But it kind of pivots off that little knob. The thorax is still, with all the vertebrae in the neck have to give and flow a little bit. If we drop our chin and sweep it across the chest, other sensations. Again, there's not as many in the skin and the surface of the neck in the front or the back. There's not as many as in the hands, but with movement, they reveal themselves. They're tracking. Is this a smooth swaying back and forth, or is it jerky? We know the difference. We can lift the chin and look up towards the ceiling, and then drop the chin, look down towards the floor, and we can feel shifting in the muscles and the tendons. The vertebrae get squished when we look up. And then turning our attention again to the hands, we'll just open the hands in front of us. Lift, bending at the elbow, and then drop. So we have this solid, bony structure in the arms, but there's a hinge, and we can lift and drop. And again, the hands are alive. They can feel the movement of skin through the air. But inside, there aren't as many sensors, but we can drop into the elbow and notice the liquid, the juiciness of the elbow, allowing those rigid bones to turn on one another. And this time we'll lift and then turn the wrists and push. And the hands feel very different, extending out, turning in towards, the fingers in towards each other, then lifting. How many sensors are firing off as we open? And again, palms forward, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, lifting, and pressing out. So what if this was a symphony and all the little spots on the pages of all the musicians looking at the spots and keeping together? It's the same thing with your hands. You're opening the palm, and all those little sensors are doing something, but they're doing it in a cohesive way. And then when you feel the elbows bend, all those sensors are working like a symphony, orchestra, everybody contributing a little bit to the overall gesture. How many millions of dots are on the page? But notice how the hand still dominates. There's so many on the hands. For millions of years, we've produced meals and tools and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera in our history, all with delicate sensors in the hands, so they're highly developed. But inside the elbow, it's not so much. Then we sink, open to the side, make bigger gestures, and watch the mood change. We take that quiet introspection and turn it into a large movement, and the heart starts opening to all the other people in the room. We're not so focused inward. We can see the other hands reaching up to the sky. That feels good. It gives us a sense of agency, having a harmonious impact on our environment. And then all the other people around us doing the same. We're sharing a harmony. It's another symphony. Bringing both hands up, arching the back. The spine gets a little attention. And then the sternum just closes in. And then opening up. And closing down. Opening. Closing. And dropping the arms down. So I have no idea what time it is. When I do the Shibashi, I know how long it takes. Here we are. Let's just sink into our feet and connect with the bottoms of the feet and hope Robert comes back soon. What are we doing here? A little splash in the sea? Okay, let's step out in another big movement. The time means nothing to the space, but thank you, Han. Okay, step out to the other side and splash in the sea. Just noticing how large movements change the mood. So we move from really delicate introspection and focus, laser-like, to filling this whole space around us. Hopefully not punching anybody in the eye. Then coming back to stillness. We can still have a mood changer without big movements, just lifting energy from the earth, let it pass through the body and sink and in. Just being connected to the earth, drawing energy up, refreshing the whole body with new energy, releasing tension down into the earth. The mood can change with simple movements. And then stillness. And then for me, the most important part is the sensation, or the realization of sensation when we're not gesturing. We're not posing, we're just standing as simply as we can, but we can't turn off the river of awareness. Actually, Tara Brach has a guided meditation like that. For the next 30 seconds, don't be aware. And then confess. Did you make it to 30? If you had, then you need to come up here. All righty, thank you very much. Soon, Robert will return to the kids.
What an incredible privilege it is to sit in this seat and be looking that way. See all of your beautiful faces. So it falls to me to do the announcements today. Avi is off doing sacred dance. On December the 17th, there is a performance of the story of Ebenezer Scrooge. There's flyers in the hallway, apparently, and that's happening here, and it's a benefit for PIMC. The classic story of waking up to love and compassion rather than greed. Next Saturday, which is the 16th, I'll be offering a day-long retreat with my friend and Dharma brother Frank Later, who's flying in from Frankfurt, actually. He's coming to do that here, and then he's going on to teach a 10-day retreat at Ruth Dennison's place in the desert in California. And it's a focus on the Brahma Viharas, on love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And we will be presenting the traditional Buddhist practices, but we're also going to have some movement and dance and interactive kind of bringing the Brahma Viharas, bringing these beautiful characteristics of human being into us. The registration info for that is on the website. Oh boy, coming attractions. This place is hopping. On the 13th, it's Gregory, Doug, and several of our teachers are going to be offering a one-day retreat for men, a first. Well, January 13, yeah? Oh yeah, the month is important, isn't it? Right. Doyle, Matt, and Gregory. Then we have 2 visiting teachers from out of town. More information will be coming on them. I'll let that come. Yeah, that's that piece of it. Are we doing consults today? You want to volunteer? All right. I'm a great believer, how could I not be, in consulting with a teacher about my meditation from time to time. And over the years, I had a 41-year relationship with Ruth Dennison. And there were many times when she helped me get unstuck. And so it's very useful. And we offer the opportunity here on Sundays. Jim is available to do it after we finish at noon. At the potluck time. I forgot to announce that earlier. He'll be in this little room here, and you can see him afterwards, I guess, to set it up. And if you have any question about your practice, then ask, because so often a simple question and a response can make a giant difference in our practice. It's also possible to see me for half an hour. And if to do that, you would contact Avi, you can get his info off the website, and make an appointment. And neither of these are a test. It's not, so, are you practicing all right? It's really, how can I be of assistance? Volunteers. PIMC needs help. We have some holes in housekeeping. We need someone to vacuum the Dharma hall. It's a very wonderful meditative practice. And we have, actually, I purchased about a year ago 3 commercial vacuums, and they're fun to use, actually. This is the Tom Sawyer thing. It's really great. Painting feels really good. But these vacuums are a little bit self-propelled. And I enjoy watching whoever does the living room, and many people have done it over the years. each person has their own style. I discovered that I have a particular style. Some people are the lawnmower types, right? But mine is the expanding fan. I do a fan, and then I go back and I do another fan. But people have their own strategies, so you can be, and it leaves their mark on the carpet. So we really do need some help at this point with housekeeping and other in the grounds. So we're not going to leave until we get 26 volunteers. But quite seriously, we do need some assistance, and Kirsten is the person to connect with. And also, PIMC runs on your generosity financially. And this place has a pretty remarkable mission and is very effective at doing it. About 5 years ago, I guess, maybe a little more, time flies so fast. About 5 years ago, I declared PIMC a success. That I always had a sense of, well, someday, when we get there, but actually this place has been doing what it does for now here, 13, 14 years. And what it does is help people to gather together in order to take responsibility for their minds and to become happier and healthier and more caring and more generous and more functional in the community and to have better relationships, and it really works. And I'm in a very privileged position getting to hear people after they've been here a while, or sometimes many years, or come back after many years and say, wow, without the Dharma, I was such a wreck. And now I'm still a wreck, but I know what's happening, and I take it less seriously. So you can contribute in many ways financially. One is the Dana Bowl back there. Another is online to become a member of the Stewardship Circle. And that's important also because it's the practice of generosity, which is the foundation of a spiritual life. So, chip in. Okay. We celebrated my birthday. There was a surprise party here a week ago last night. I'm still in recovery from the party, I think. Paul, who's up there, made this. I don't know if you can read it from there. It says, "It's already broken." It's such a relief to have something like this. You can throw it around. But it comes from a teaching from Ajahn Chah, classic teaching. I don't know if it was original to him, but it's attributed to him. He, a young monk, was becoming aware of how impermanent everything is. One of the things that happens as we practice is, as we come out of the clouds of fantasy, we start noticing how things really are changing. And how, for instance, just look at the ceiling here for a second. Or out the window. Look at, everything is in constant flux. And Ajahn Buddhadasa, another one of the Thai teachers of the last generation, said, the truth of impermanence blazes at us with the brilliance of 1,000,000 suns. It's a miracle that we don't see it. When you drive your car, when you bicycle home or walk home today, you could go what I think of as headless and become the awareness that you are, and watch what happens. There's this incredible flowing by of images. The world flows by, the world flows into you. Same is true with the breath. It's always in flux. But the Ajahn Chah story, young monk is encountering this in his practice, and there comes some times in practice where it gets to be so obvious that everything's in flux that it can get kind of terrifying, actually, when we come out of the denial and delusion. And this young monk kept seeing Ajahn Chah be very happy, and he asked him, how can you be so happy in a world where everything's always falling apart and there's strife and nothing lasts? And Ajahn Chah picked up his cup and said, you see this cup? For me, this cup is already broken. And so when that day comes, and I like this cup, I use it twice a day or 3 times a day, and it's pretty, and I remember who gave it to me, it has a whole story. But there will come a day when it gets broken. And so rather than, oh no, why did my cup get broken? I live with it every day and every moment as if it's already broken, which means I get to delight in it. Not attached delight, but to delight in its functionality and beauty. I heard that story, not for the first time, but I heard that story at Brighton Bush Hot Springs 35 years ago when my son was a 7-month-old in my arms. And Stephen Levine told it, and then he said, live with everything as though it's already broken. And then he said, live with your loved ones as though they're already dead. And that changed actually my relationship to Luke. I didn't miss, maybe I missed a night or 2, but even when it wasn't my night on to put him to bed, I always went in and tucked him in. And then in the morning when he'd wake up, and sometimes in the night a gazillion times, but there was always this sense of, oh, we get another day. Right, we get another day. And that's still true for us all. So, anicca, impermanence. Yesterday I went to a celebration of life. Really, I accompanied my daughter. It was one of her best friends this lifetime. He was 68. He was 2 years younger than me. It's a little unnerving, right? Because it means that, gosh, that could possibly, not likely, but it could possibly happen to me. That I could. And the celebration of life wasn't nearly as fun as my birthday here, but there was something similar to it in that it was people who loved him coming together, in this case to talk about him posthumously. And he was a person who was very alive. There were more than 300 people at a Union Hall in East Portland. But they showed slides, and there were the slides of this vibrant man with his babies, and then he got sick. He was sick for some time, years, and then he's now gone. I took pictures of his wife and kids and sent them to them last night. But this sickness and aging and dying thing is not abnormal, it's normal. Right? It's what we do. We come mysteriously and miraculously out of nowhere or everywhere, and then we go through somebody training, we become somebody, and then we do our dance, and then we disappear. That's strange. Worthy of reflection, said the Buddha. There are some classic contemplations. Let's see if I can, how this will work, if it does. I looked, we need to get some more printed up, the contemplations on sickness, old age, and death. But push the button. No? There we go. funny. I used to really think when people would, oh, it's out of tune, I think, oh man, you're so picky. But you know, it's happened to me. I can't stand it when it's out of tune. Tuning is impermanent temperature. Really is different. So let's see how this works. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. Is this true? I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. Is this true? I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. Is this true? All that is mine, beloved and pleasing. That's the heavy one for me, I think. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. Is this true? All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become separated from me. Everyone that I know and love will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, of that I shall be the heir. Thus we should frequently recollect, said the Buddha. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to fall ill, to be sick. Is this true? I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. Is this true? Is it really true? Is it not just true for other people, but is it true for me? Is it true for my loved ones? All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, of that I shall be the heir. Thus should we frequently recollect. Or the shorthand, my death is certain. The time of my death is uncertain. The place of my death is uncertain. how then shall I live my life today? My death is uncertain, the time and place and way of my death are uncertain. How then should I spend this afternoon? My death is certain, the time, the place, the way of my death are uncertain. How then shall I spend my life? I have a favorite factoid. Many of you have heard many times. It's so startled me when I first read it. It's in a little book called The History of a Short History of Civilization. Human beings have been here for, I forget, they keep pushing it back. But what this fellow figured out was that if we start with Mesopotamia as what we call, quote, civilization, with the agrarian revolution, that we lived in small hunting and gathering bands of 50 people or less for 99.96% of our time on the planet. Right? That means that Mesopotamia, the beginning of the modern world, was 0.04% of our time as humans. The oldest of us humans, for that 99.96% of the time, were 30. And it was a very hard-scrabble, difficult world because we're pretty vulnerable. So we live in an era, I mean, to think, we live in the era of analgesics. We have the capacity to numb out pain, which human beings we've hardly had it for less than 1,000th of an eye blink. We also have the capacity to do surgery and recover from incredibly difficult things. And we're living to remarkable old ages. And we have pharmaceuticals that allow, I wouldn't be alive without the pharmaceutical industry. These bodies have as their nature getting old, getting sick, and dying. That's their nature. And we've been, at least from my generation, we've been incredibly successful at eliminating or pushing back a lot of sickness. It always still gets us in the end. But along the way, we also get sick a lot. Have you noticed? And we tend to think of it as a mistake. Like, I shouldn't be sick. This is my traditional, it's like I can count on it. I hope this is I hope it goes away. But it usually does. But sometimes it's come in January, and then last year it hung on for 8 or 9 weeks, this cold. And then what we could say, oh well, I'm not boosting my immune system enough. I should be taking more this, or should be taking more of that, or having less of this, or I should be having more rest. That's one thing that's true. There's the wheeze. It was actually an interesting position to be in when I was responsible for Ruth Dennison's care for the last 2 years of her life, because everyone who came to visit had their special remedy that they wanted her to take. And almost, not everybody, but at least one person in 3 came, and one person showed up with something she said was very expensive. She must take it. I brought it with me from Europe, and I looked it up on the net, and it was totally in contradiction with several of her medications. And so we had to have a rule: nothing gets by, because of course we all want to help, and we all have our favorite thing of doing, and we can get into the this is the mind that isn't thinking very quickly. We do, in our culture at this time, we do a lot of self-blame and blame of the person who's sick because we have a mistaken understanding of the law of karma. And if a person gets a bad diagnosis or a bad sickness, there's a tendency to say, well, why are you causing this to yourself? Why don't you stop causing yourself this cancer or this cold or this? And the fact is that these are biological organisms that are subject to these things. And the mind and its intentions are not in charge. It may well have some impact, but it doesn't mean that I can will this cold to go away. Right? As its life cycle. So, thinking, wishing to speak about this, and then the symptoms flare inside. So what's the symptom? There's a tightness here, it's a bronchial sort of thing. There's a tightness and a tickling, and I think there's some secretion that's tickling that then wants to get, the body coughs this stuff out, right? It's designed for that. So it becomes pretty predominant. So we could say, oh, I can't meditate today because my nose is too stuffy and I can't be aware of breathing. Well, if meditation, satipatthana vipassana, mindfully staying nearby and seeing things as they really are, observing reality as it is, what's really happening? Some there's this pretty unpleasant thing happening right here, right now. There's also some pressure in the eyes a little bit. There isn't a sense of generalized malaise, which is nice, like with flu. There isn't a fever. But there's this. So how shall I meditate with it? Well, pause, turn toward it. How intimate can I become with the symptom? Just like, how intimate can you become with your body right now, with the contact with the floor? Some years ago, I got what's it called? They get it on ships a lot. Sweet.
Scurvy?
No, not scurvy. Oh, the norovirus. Yes, I got the norovirus, and I called my doc. My stomach was distended, and I had this fever, and I just felt, oh God, I felt terrible. And I called my doc, and they said, "You've got the norovirus. There's an epidemic of it, and you'll have it for a couple or 3 days, and it'll pass. And given your state of health, it's really not dangerous. But so I had to take 3 days off work. That was exciting. I was not going to work for 3 days, and I lay on the couch with this pain in the gut." And it was really uncomfortable, but there was almost no suffering. Because number one, I knew it was safe. It wasn't like I had a deathly illness. But all I did was to turn toward the symptoms and stop fighting them. And just be that. And then the hours went by, and then it really was not a problem, because the suffering isn't in the symptom itself, the suffering is in the resistance to the symptom. Every one of us in this room will, I guess I can say it that way, most probably we will all have some significant illness in our lives. if we're not already. Some people in this room have chronic pain already, all the time. Actually, I learned, the owner of a restaurant I frequent said the other day, once you turn 50, it's a good sign that you have constant pain every day, because it means you're still alive. Because there's always, there always was in my experience, but there's always something aching, or it's just, and it gets stiffer and stiffer and harder. It takes more work to get it to function. But what a privilege to have something that's getting old and aging and functioning, because most of us never made it past 30. And that's something, 30. All the diseases of old age that we think of as maybe they're a mistake, there's just never been any genetic pruning. Because we passed on our genetic code by the time we're 25, historically. So, how to practice with illness. When you're sick, be sick. It doesn't mean don't use the medications that you can to reduce the symptoms, but to allow sickness to exist as a reality, which if we can allow it to exist in ourselves, we can also allow it to exist in our loved ones, and then we're not so impatient with them because they're just not getting better fast enough. There's a terminology used in the psychological world, certainly. They call it secondary gain, that people stay sick because they're getting attention and so on. I have never really found that to be true. I've worked with some people over the years who were really sick and very difficult to be around because of their profound neediness, but then when the opportunity for them, I'm thinking of one or two people in particular who had these long-term awful things, and then a new medication was developed, and they took the medication, and bam, it was over. They weren't delighting in being sick and getting lots of attention. They weren't getting nearly enough attention, given how sick they were. But my observation is, as soon as we're given the capacity to be healthy and productive, we do it. I guess that's partially why I believe in things like welfare and helping our less privileged people. So, when there's physical pain, where is it? How curious can you become about it? Maybe do it right now. There's somewhere in your body there's some discomfort right now. Turn toward it. Instead of taking the breath as your primary training object, use the skill that you've developed in paying attention to the breath, and now take that awareness into the ache in your back, or the headache, or whatever's there. And get close to it. Go closer and closer. Put aside the word pain or back, or just soften into it. Notice any resistance there is. Notice any story there is. Oh no, this is going to last for a long time, or whatever it is. How intimate can you become with this piece of your life? When the mind wanders, come back here. And notice if there's any suffering. And if there is suffering, dive as deeply as you can into that and be as present as you can to feel it completely. And then notice, is there any sense that this shouldn't be? I shouldn't have this experience. I can call this an unenforceable rule. I should not be experiencing this. It's not fair, or why does it always happen to me, or something like that. And so that too, we simply observe and experience non-judgmentally with as open a heart as we can. And as we get closer and closer, we may discover that the symptoms are not solid. They actually are scintillating or changing, or they are life manifesting. And you may discover that as you get closer and closer, there's not even someone experiencing it, there's just experience. And now we can do exactly the same thing with emotions, because emotions have they are a bioelectronic phenomenon. So this is what we call working with emotions, turning toward the felt sense in the body of sadness or fear or joy or happiness. And as we do that with a stable mind that we've developed through our meditation practice, it always resolves into a cloud of life, a mass of sensations, a flow of anicca, a permanence. And also the realization that there's no one having this experience, it's just an experience. It's life experiencing itself. Now, if you'll notice how it is to let your eyes open. I remembered as I was speaking this, an opportunity I had years ago now working in hospice with a fellow who was Catholic, who was in excruciating pain. He was in so much pain, they had him on a pump. He was in so much pain that in order to get rid of it, he had to be basically unconscious. But that wasn't very satisfying because he couldn't be with his family for these last few days. There was cancer metastasized to the bones of his back, so they were exploding. And he was very Catholic. Oh, I never can find this when I look for it in all that last second. He's a very Catholic fellow, and so I switched into my Catholic vocabulary. And I shared with him this poem by Teilhard de Chardin. Let's see if it'll pop up. Pain. Here we are. The essence of it's a prayer from Teilhard de Chardin, Catholic mystic, last century, where he says that at that last moment when I'm losing control of myself and I'm coming apart, may I realize that it's you, God, the universe, it is you that is opening me from the inside to set me free within yourself. So I did that framing, and then I did a guided meditation with him where he breathed, and I breathed with him, and on the out-breath, when he breathed out, I went, ah, ah. And then I invited him to, instead of trying to get away from the pain, to turn toward it and just soften and go in deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And he did, and he became more and more calm and more calm, and he relaxed more and more as he moved into the pain, and you go beyond the pain, you go into the sensations that we're calling pain, and they just opened up for him. Now he had some assistance, he still had some morphine aboard and so on, but when we ended, he said, "Young man, this is the only thing anyone has shown me that works." And he reduced his medication by probably 50%, and he was able to be conscious with his family. Through doing the totally counterintuitive thing, which is turn toward it. Turn toward it and open. Turn toward it and open. So, any question or comment? How to work with it's one last thread. Years and years ago, probably 30 years ago, I was on a retreat. It was a retreat with Jack Kornfield teaching. Third day, it was camping in California. Third day there, I got the flu. And I spent the whole retreat in my tent. And at first I had this sense, I'm missing the retreat, I'm missing the retreat. And then I realized, I'm not missing the retreat. This is the retreat. Had I been healthy, quote, I would have gone on nice walks and been entertained by this and that, but in this case, no entertainment. There was fever, and there was feeling really crappy, and there was just presence. And then a lot of compassion, because people have the flu all the time. So, any question or comment? Please come, can you take this back, Jim? Here you go.
So recently I had a friend who had no idea they were sick and were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and it was all over their body. And within 4 weeks, they were gone.
Wow.
Completely. And it really kind of touched me in my own mortality, because this person was someone my own age, who was part of my tribe. And so I've noticed that in the case, one of the things that I've seen is that there are some skeletons there. And something that I've found a little bit of personal help is going to cemeteries and thinking about what death is and the spark that we are.
Yeah.
Would you mind speaking a little bit about that?
When we're done, if you'd like, come up and twist off this top and look in here. There's little bone fragments that are left over after cremation. These are fragments of Ruth Denison. And they're just calcium. I mean, there's nothing, as Ruth would have said, there's nothing sacred about them. It's not like, oh, this is a relic of the saint. But it's a great teaching to realize that was her hip or something. And we're the same, right? If you tap on your head, it's a skull. And there's lots of meditations in the Buddhist world. There's the 32 parts of the body, where one visualizes hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin. Is this who I am? Really? And there's 10 quite serious. I would come up and take a peek if you feel like it. There's a second layer too with more down. There's a big chunk there. Ruth would love it to be used that way. When we talked about her and her death and having enough, we had her body for a day. We carried it across the desert and then we chanted. And I had about 35 pounds of dry ice, which was a great thing because then she was on ice and was safe and so on. But put this here. So there's meditations that are done. They're still done by the monks in Asia. Way back when I went to Burma, Taungpulu Sayadaw, the old man that I did a week of novice training with in Rangoon, when one of his monks died, they put him on a concrete slab and they watched. They watched for hours a day until he became just a skeleton. They watched the birds come and the whole thing happened. Not to create disgust. If it creates disgust, then it's the wrong practice. But to create a quality of dispassion and a capacity of seeing, this is really true. This is really what happens. Because we suffer 3 delusions according to the Buddha. The first one is the delusion of permanence. We actually believe that there's something permanent, that we're going to be able to hang around. And life keeps coming along and kind of kicking us in the shins. It's like, no, it's not true. But then we get healthy again, and things stabilize, or the political system gets a little more normalized, and we go, phew, it's okay, we're moving towards stability. And then the whole thing crumbles again. So there's the delusion of permanence, there's the delusion of satisfaction, as though we could be satisfied in life. And we don't. How could something that's a flow-through of energy be satisfied? Except there is the great happiness of relinquishment and realizing, oh, there's nothing to hold on to. There's satisfaction in that, but it's of a different order. And then there's the profound delusion that we have in the separate self, that I'm me. And of course I am, and you are, but not for long. And more specifically to your question, that chant, I'll put the chant on the listserv today, the I am of the nature to die, or I am of the nature to age, I've not gone beyond aging. That was recommended as a daily chant, a daily reflection. And I add the piece, is this true? And I do that when I do this for myself. I've kind of fallen out of the habit, but I think after today I'll reintroduce it, that I do it with myself, and then I plug Jennifer in. Jennifer is of the nature to age, sicken, and die. And then my children, and then my stepkids. And it's very sobering. And it makes the next time I encounter one of them really sweet. It's like, all right. Actually, I commonly have that experience. I always wake up early in the morning, and I commonly have the experience of rolling over and being aware of Jennifer beside me breathing in it. And sometimes I'll just lie there for a long time and listen to her breathe. It's like, wow, what a privilege. What a privilege to be there with this extraordinary human being and to be part of each other's life. I had that when I walked in here Saturday night a week ago, and there were more than 100 people here, and I was so blown away with the preciousness of it. Right? We're all getting to meet. Some people had come in from around the country that I hadn't seen in some time, and to have have another opportunity to meet. So keeping it in consciousness, Don Juan put it for Carlos Castaneda, keeping death over your left shoulder, remembering that it's right here, just today. Is that helpful? Yeah. Any other question or comment?
The party balloon continues.
Oh, look at that! Wow! That's one of the ones that had the super duper long. Right, look at that. Hi, it's also camouflaged.
Yeah.
Rod, please, can you grab the mic? Hi, those of you out there. Haven't forgotten you're there.
On your chant, I'm going to die, I'm sick. My answer is, from my experience, no. So I'm glad you asked the question. Is this true? I don't believe it's true. I mean, on one level, of course, I'm going to die and I will be sick, but I believe there's another part of me that isn't sick and isn't going to die. But so when it really is a relief for me to hear, is it true?
It's what?
It's a relief for me to hear the question, is it true?
Yeah.
But I wanted to put out to you as well this movie that Connie and I just went to see the other night, Coco. And how do we know that there isn't a whole dance of us on the other side having a wonderful time, getting to come across and spend more time?
I couldn't agree more. I recommend Coco as excellent medicine for the heart. I really, we actually have a compulsory family outing on tomorrow night to go see Coco. All right, we have the wild ones in the chute. So thank you all for coming. May you not get sick at all this winter, but if you do, or when you do, may you make great use of it. Oh, there's a potluck, and it doesn't matter if you didn't bring food, come and eat, because there's always too much. There's always plenty. And Michael, there's the microphone. Great. Hello, sweetie. That's a lot. Can I scoot my leg up there? I can't sit with it bent. There we go. Well. So, may I hold your hand? Thank you. Oh, look at those sparkly nails. Nice. Can I hold your hand? Thank you. And if you would, if you feel like it, hold somebody's hand nearby. We're so lucky to have hands. What a moment. We could have a moment of gratitude for hands. How nice. And that there's someone on our right and someone on our left who's willing to hold our hand. Or not. So these minds can do anything, so why not have it think a kind thought for the person on your right? A blessing, maybe a gratitude for them. And the person on your left, same, some kind thought. A wish, maybe. And then around our circles, hand to hand and heart to heart, where we wish well for everyone. And then let's extend this to all beings, our brothers and sisters of the air, the earth, and the waters. The eagles and the foxes and the deer and the fish and the dolphins. All beings, all of us that take birth and then vanish. May we all remember our true great nature, whatever that mystery is beyond this birthing and deathing. And may we open to that in this very lifetime. So, do we have singers? Yes? Let's all contemplate what would be a wish we'd love to have come true. And then on the count, everyone in the room gets to breathe in, and then all together we'll blow out the candle. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes, we did it. Thank you all for coming, and do come and share some food. Thank you for those of you that are here from the internet world. Thank you very much for being here. And see you next week. Oh, don't forget, next Saturday, the retreat with Frank Later and myself.